All of my work is about life and stuff, and just as any artist and as most people in life try and do, we all try and understand why we're here and what's the purpose of life, and I do that through my art, you know? But I'm also interested in the contrast of that. The contrast to life is the idea of death. In war, there's an expression about how easy it is to make a ghost, and that kind of caught my attention. Art is a record of our times, and for people to understand in the future what happened through these times, art has that very important role. I think 300 feet's probably going to be better.
Yep.
And 310 feet is what Stonehenge is for the outer boundaries, you know, and I think I'd kind of like to try and keep it to kind of echo what Stonehenge has got, just for the scale. We're up here in the Peace River District, which is near a little town of Hudson Hope, northeastern BC, and this is where I'm going to be doing my peace sanctuary. So what do you think of that sunset over there, Sam?
That's amazing.
Isn't that pretty cool? I was looking for a site that would be fairly remote because it was very important to me that people made an effort to get out to see this peace sanctuary. I wanted people to make a commitment. Oh yeah, there it is.
I'm starving.
You're hungry? I told you to have breakfast. Hey?
Oh wow.
The whole idea of this sanctuary is to try and raise awareness about communication and getting people talking to each other. Both sides of any grief, any conflict, both sides have needs, and each person has to recognize that other person's needs in order to get trust and harmony and all those things that we want for our kids in this world, right? Art is just one of those things, it's like a tuning fork, you know, it kind of brings things into a certain focus so that you can understand it. It makes it a more secure world. At least that's what it does for me. A little bit green on his lips, good. Don't worry about it. Well, thank you very much for coming here today. That's great. How many of you guys are artists yourselves? Lots of hands, eh? That's good. I've been painting for years, and ever since I was basically you guys' age, I've been just loved to paint. When I'm painting, I'm trying to reach your heart. You know, I'm trying to get a reaction out of the person that's looking at my work. And I got that reaction just when I turned this around. It's exactly what I'm trying to do with my work, right? The way I paint and the things that I paint are about life. When I see people being killed through war, it catches my attention, and I want to try and also include that in my work. That's why I've been getting into this thing about the peace sanctuary, and why I'm doing some work that is related to some of the terrible things that are happening in the world. It's called Iraq. It's a small little country, but it's got a lot of oil in it. And I heard through the news that a lot of children were dying because of what was happening there. And I wanted to find out if it was true. And so I went there, and what I saw was pretty bad. I went to Iraq because I'd heard a lot of things that I found quite disturbing. So I wanted to go there and find out for myself what is happening there, so that I wouldn't just be going by, you know, news events and things that the government have told us, you know. We didn't know what to expect. I mean, we went in there with no idea what to expect. But when we got into Baghdad itself, everything was just broken and crumbling, and this open sewage in the streets. And then, of course, there's the children on the streets begging. When you see the infrastructure all falling apart, it's really a despair. I was actually quite amazed at how friendly they were. They were extremely friendly to me. Like, everybody was just so, like, just welcome to Iraq every single time. A big part of my work is about family, and so to have Samuel working on this, it makes a lot of sense to me through my heart to have him in this. Okay, I'll bring the hammer down and we'll put the pin in, okay? Then we'll get you to try and go around on your bike to mark the circle once we get a general circle on there, okay?
Okay.
So I'll be down shortly. Look at some smoother places.
Whoa, Dad!
Sorry,
Dad!
What?
Don't do that!
No, I thought that was helping. I thought it was helping.
Well, he's sort of crazy, but he's a really cool guy, and he always tries to do big, important things. That's what it seems like to me. Like ever since I was little, he's always, got some scheme going on.
The mother and child image it's central to a lot of ideas of nurturing and caring and fertility, and that's something that drew me towards it. I see this mother sort of protecting the child, and you think right now as we're speaking, a mother is probably holding her child in Israel, in Palestine, in Iraq. There's conflict everywhere. After most of the bombing stopped, the United Nations imposed sanctions on Iraq. This included items that Iraq wasn't allowed to bring into the country. Things like as vague as pencils. The graphite in the pencils could theoretically be made into, used for coding airplanes so that they could evade radar. Cancer drugs that could be used for treating children could also be used as some sort of chemical weapons. So the dual use idea is a real problem. It sounds quite good in theory. When you first hear it, you think, oh yeah, I won't allow anything in that might be used for military, but it creates a lot of, it's very difficult to define that. It's a very complicated issue because people see sanctions as a replacement for war. These sanctions were more than just not choosing to buy a few things out of Iraq. Basically, these sanctions were a stone wall, a box around the Iraqi people. This, what you're seeing, that main pegs all the way around, is really to the inside or the outside of...
to the top of the ramp.
The first, first ring. Well, Phil's just arrived and he's explained to me some of the basic problems. Like, we have a hump in the middle there in about the worst possible spot. But in general, he's looked at what we've got laid out and he figures that things should work quite well. I'm thrilled to see it out there because we've been waiting so long for this moment.
I operate equipment in this country. I'm actually a cat skinner. Up here, this isn't a bulldozer, it's a cat. And that's what I do. I've been doing it all my life. And it's kind of nice being able to do some art. I think if you live in the peace country, peace is something that is on your mind here more than anywhere else, and you think about it and think that, it should be emphasized in some way. It should be brought out. And that's a big thing to me.
There is serious problems facing doctors because they just can't get the medicines. Under the oil for food deal, they are allowed to import medicine, and that's what our politicians will say, well, medicine's allowed, you know? But when you only allow a very small amount of oil to be sold, and that money is handled by the UN and controlled by the UN, which it should be, there's only so much money, and you have to buy everything with that. If you work it out to dollars and cents, well, it really comes out to cents for every man, woman, and child. So, you know, we went in and we saw the kids in their beds and stuff, and I mean, it's just like something out of some hell, because there isn't really the nurses there to look after the kids. It's the parents that are in the hospital. They have to come in and basically sit with the child. Any of the needs that the child needs, if he needs some food, they will bring the food in. And you've got little kids sitting there dying of stuff, like dying of cancer, and they don't even have Tylenol. And other things as well, many things that the kids are, you know, just in agony because they can't get basic stuff. You're in a situation where all you can do is observe, and just by being in the room you feel like you're imposing on these people and almost adding to their misery. On the one hand, you want to take photographs so that you can come back and tell people what's going on, and then the other way you feel, you know, the mum is just crying. She's sitting there asking, why are you here? You know, why are you people doing this to us? During the Gulf War, there was many different targets were hit. There was schools, hospitals, civilian infrastructure. But one of the ones that stands out as sort of a symbol of what shouldn't be done is the Amaria bomb shelter in Baghdad. The missile had came down, punched a hole through the ceiling and exploded inside the thing, pretty well killing everybody on that floor. There was 2 floors to this thing. After this explosion, a very short time afterward, another missile came through the same hole.
Here, this is the pictures of the martyrs, each one different families, and all of them under 18.
All the people inside basically many of them were just incinerated. There was children that had to be peeled off the ceiling like strips of fruit leather. Parents had brought their kids there because they thought this was the safest place to be. When I went through that shelter, I really feared for the future of the world. While I was in Baghdad, I had a very short time. We were just racing everywhere. At the same time, I was trying to secure a small piece of ground that I could try and at least leave some kind of a reminder, a message to the Iraqi people that people outside were thinking about them and cared about them. I got a little piece of ground and I was able to do a small art image. It was just a little drawing, but I did it with stones from the garden in a fairly large field. The design is basically brought out of a sense of frustration while I was in Canada and watching the Gulf War over the last number of years. And I just felt I had to do something that would be positive and try and bring some hope, some sort, to the Iraqi children. A lot of little children that were actually at this hotel, they were in a daycare center there, and they came out and they helped me lay some of the stones, which was kind of nice. It was a symbolic gesture. The idea of the drawing is it had to be simple because I knew I would have very little time to do it. child held in its mother's hands, and it's within the shape of an eye. And the eye is essentially, we must look at this and think about it, what we're seeing. It did the job because I had people coming by and giving me hugs and thanking me, and a positive kind of discussion going on back and forth between the people.
I can really understand his point of view, you know, because he has ties to Iraq. For me, it's all children. People in different parts of the world, if they see the Peace Sanctuary and connect with it and build their own, they won't be thinking of somebody's children far away. They'll be thinking of their own children.
Get a good start. When I got back from Iraq, I was quite totally shattered. I mean, I'd been through some kind of an experience that I'd never ever experienced in my lifetime before.
Well, he said he was a wreck. Like he saw a lot of horrible things, which we couldn't understand because we hadn't been there. And so he was quite depressed for a time, and he was trying to find a way to express himself.
I felt like I was in a different world, you know, and I was in a different world. And that was the hardest thing to deal with. It still is the hardest thing to deal with people sometimes who are even close to you that can't understand the depth of the despair that these people are in.
I'm getting towards understanding it, but I don't know if I ever really could without having gone there myself. And I don't know if I would want to go there myself to put myself through it, because I think that it would be too much for me, and I do worry sometimes that it's too much for him.
So when I came back, I did some paintings and things, and that wasn't really working. Like, I wasn't getting through to people, because the kind of work that I was doing was quite, it was accusing kind of work. It was pointing the finger at who's right and who was wrong. I wasn't making any friends, I was only making enemies. It took me a long time to figure that out. The enemy actually is us. We have to understand that we're all in this and that we're all part of the solution. I know for myself I went through a huge shift. I'm learning this thing as I go along, like I'm not there yet, but I can see the benefit of looking at problems and solving problems in a totally different way. We know the rules already. We just have to keep reminding ourselves to try and listen to those things. Just like international law, we've established international law, we've established children's rights. We know what those rights are, but we don't adhere to them when it suits us, you know. The solution is following those rules, you know. That's what justice is. And that kind of led me to the idea of trying to do some kind of a spiritual resistance kind of a art piece. And I thought, you know, if I can do something out in public, and I'll start asking questions, why are you doing this? It took me about a year to figure that out. And I did it in a farmer's field in Victoria.
Oh, okay, so I'm cleaning up in here probably.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Alrighty.
This is definitely not a political statement. This is standing up for human rights. This is standing up for those children who have died and the ones who are still suffering in Iraq. So yeah, this is an example of one of the little boys that I met in the hospital. There's a minimum, according to UNICEF, there's a minimum of 350,000 children have died as a direct result of sanctions.
think it looks amazingly beautiful. I just think that the definition now with this light is fantastic. You know, there's some beautiful shapes kind of the hair curling down, and the hand looks really good, the faces are good. I think it's fantastic.
The piece that I did in Victoria, it opened up something inside myself that made me recognize the power of what I was doing, that there was something there that people immediately, that their defenses came down. I think that was the most important thing. I've always had the idea that it would be terrific to see these things kind of pop up in different parts of the world. So I headed off to Scotland to do one in my hometown. Can you believe that this used to be the front door, Tom? It's hard to believe. My parents died quite young. My mum was in her early 30s and I was probably 11 or 12. So that made quite an impression on me. Then my dad died, so when I come here, this is my way of making a connection to my mum and dad again. And there's a strong connection between here and what I'm trying to do with my work. So I'm getting into what appears on the outside as two different things. Some people think, oh gee, you're a landscape artist. Why would you be doing some of these war things? Why are you getting involved in Iraq? And like, they're so different, when they're not different at all. It's all about the same thing. It's all about people being very vulnerable, trying to make a living, trying to enjoy life in this world while they're here. It's a very short time that we're here.
How many people will be working on this?
You, and you.
No, really.
There'll be me and you.
That's
it's
it?
me and you.
That's it?
We have a 10-acre field here and we have to try and rake all this hay, and it's huge. And that's why we have to be realistic. We've only got about 4 days.
We need at least like 18 people.
We need about 18 people and a tractor.
too.
You know? Yeah, but you're a good worker.
No, I'm not.
I see it.
What's the top? Oh, the top line is an eyelash and an eye, isn't it?
Good job, there's something.
You see it?
Woo! Yeah, I see it.
Yeah, great.
I thought it sounded like a pretty cool idea, but at the same time, it sounded like another one of his crazy ideas, you know. And me and my mom, we had tons of talks about it. We just, we wondered, like, what's he thinking, gonna go, like, up to northern BC and do... But that changed for me when I got out here and I saw what he was doing. And I realized that it was something very, very cool and very serious and very inspiring.
You've definitely got a gap now, Phil. There's definitely a gap, but the mouth could probably come this way just a little bit yet.
Alright.
They hate me.
I would say like our center stake to our picture should actually be this way about 5 or 6 feet.
Over to the left?
Over to the right. We were having a lot of trouble trying to get things to shape and things to come, and Deryk couldn't see any way that the dove could actually be there. And I couldn't see any way that we could build a peace sanctuary without a dove, which is the symbol all throughout the world of peace. You have to believe in what you're doing in order to do a good job of it, so. And I believed in the dove.
He did an excellent presentation at our library this last week about his trips to Iraq and a bomb shelter that he had seen there and the devastation and the need to bring about world peace and realization of what's going on in the world. And I think there were about 25 people there. I don't think there was any one of us that left that place without that image of that bomb shelter firmly planted in our brain and saying, how can we make a difference?
I do believe that the world is what you make it. We can go one route, we can choose war and have it totally destroy us. or we can try and do something else. And that's basically all I'm trying to do. So I'm hoping that it will at least be a draw, that people will come, experience this by themselves, the solitude of this place, the beauty of the place, and then think about the world. Some of these things can seem really overwhelming and too big to deal with, and you think I can't do anything. And I don't expect to change the world either with this thing. It's not a huge contribution, but it's doing something. And that's what I want people to realize, is that small things can make a huge difference to other people.